Wanda Brackins is Head of Diversity and Inclusion for RBC Wealth Management. She's responsible for executing and overseeing the progress of the firm's diversity and inclusion strategy and initiatives that align and support with the overall business goals, including workforce representation, multicultural market outreach, and community involvement. Wanda has been a diversity and inclusion leader for over 20 years and has written and contributed to various articles on the subject. She has a master's degree in business administration, a bachelor's degree in business, and a certificate in human resource management. Welcome, Wanda.
Thank you, Pelin. I'm happy to be here.
I'm excited to chat with you today on the topic of intersectional feminism, which is actually a concept that, although has been around for several decades, has only recently started trending earlier this year following the rising of the Black Lives Movement. However, I'm sure for many of our viewers, this term is still brand new. So let's dive into it then. What is intersectionality or intersectional feminism?
Well, intersectionality is the realization that people in general are impacted by the various experiences or identities that they have, such as race, gender, sexual orientation, social economic status, even education. And these different factors can contribute to how people are treated within the workplace or just in our society in general.
We live in a multicultural society. I think it's important to note, as you stated, that not everyone's experiences, opportunities, or struggles are equal. And this is especially the case for Black, Indigenous, and women of color. So that being said, can you provide an example of how women of color experience discrimination differently than white women in a corporate environment?
Yes, absolutely. When you think about women of color, and I'm going to just talk particularly around Black women, that they've been in the workplace a lot longer. If you go back to slavery and so forth, how they had to support their own families, but they also worked in the homes of slave masters. Fast forward that to current. Black women are still behind the pay curve when you compare that to their white counterparts.
Right. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done. What can organizations do to ensure that intersectionality is considered within the corporate environment? What types of diversity and inclusion initiatives and/or programs can help support these marginalized women?
Well, for one thing, I think first and foremost that organizations need to realize that the experiences that women have are not the same across the board. They need to realize that. They need to also understand intersectionality. They need to understand it. They need to act on it. And when I think about some of the different topics, some of the different programs and initiatives that organizations have, I don't believe that there needs to be separate programs for women of color, but what I do believe is that they need to take into consideration the various aspects that women have to deal with. They need to take into account the intersectionality. They need to realize that, it can't just be across the board for all women, that, our unique experiences and identities have to be taken into consideration. So those are things that they really need to understand. And I think today, many organizations don't do that.
And final question, as we are both here under the umbrella and initiative of Women in Leadership, how can organizations like Women in Leadership support the intersectionality dialogue?
I think that there are three different areas. I think learn and listen, make space, and check your privilege. And what I mean by that is, you listen to some of the experiences that women of color have, some of the challenges that they have, not only in the workplace, but in society. And then you learn from that. And as we learn from that, you can help to carry that message forward. Make space. When you make space, you create opportunities. Just like, you've invited me to come on today to share the different things that that women go through. And sometimes, you or I, we can research information about other women of color, and we can share that information as well. But nothing is more impactful than a lesson coming from someone that has experienced it. So when I say make space for them to tell their stories. And then lastly, check your privilege. And we hear a lot about white privilege, but something? A lot of us, all of us have privilege. I mean, when you think about the fact that, you can look at myself and another Black woman, and the fact that, I've gone to colleges, universities, that in and of itself, comparing from an educational standpoint, that gives you a little bit more privilege, a little bit more, up on the next person. And, even your upbringing or the society in which you live, even the way that, even looking at certain things that keep people out of the workplace, that there have even been studies that, women that are heavier in nature, body structure, that they tend to receive less job opportunities or job offers than women that are of smaller stature. So those are the things that we have to look at. I mean, and there's so many areas in which we have privilege. So I think that's very important, that people check their privilege. So those are the three things that I would advise.
Thank you very much, Wanda, for these great insights. It's really important that we continue to have these intersectionality dialogues as we move forward as a team, whether it's having a seat at the table or having a common voice to make sure that together we can make an impact. Thank you again.